Trevor Bond. I'm working with Core Education as a blended e-learning facilitator. One of my passions, which has been driving a lot of my learning and working with schools over the last 13 years, is student questioning skills. We seem to have an education system that's growing question answerers instead of question askers. The research backs it up. There's research that says that children prior to going into any form of schooling generate 50% of the questions in the home. At preschool they generate 10% of the questions. At high school they generate 0.08% of the questions in a classroom. Which means the rest of the time their focus is on answering teachers' questions. That concerns me because if I've got a child who's a question answerer, all they can do is share the knowledge they have in their head. If I've got a child though who's a question asker, there's somebody who can think, there's somebody who can find information, there's somebody who can get the stuff that they need to solve problems, to think deeper, to think wider, to see new perspectives. Don't we want classrooms of question askers instead of question answerers? But if we go on doing what we've always done, we're going to get what we've always got. And the research I've been doing with schools as we assess children's questioning ability is that 80 or 90% of the students in our school either ask, when given a situation or a context, an irrelevant question or a question that's missing the vocab that is needed to make the question work. So we've got, I think, a real issue. And this was stated by Neil Postman way back in his book, Teaching as a Subversive Activity, written back in the 60s. And he talked in there about questioning being our most important intellectual tool. And he says, the sad thing is, it's not being taught in our schools. Worse than that, he says, it's not being taught in the most dire way possible. In the fact that we have an environment in our classrooms which is raising question answerers, not question askers. You know, take for instance the moments of questioning. As a clever teacher, you may set up a situation that provides some stimuli for children's thinking. And that stimuli may be in the form of some activities you've set up, some things for them to see, to do, to experience. That stimuli comes in, and if the child responds to that stimuli, then there'll be a moment of cognitive dissonance where they realize that there's something here they don't understand, something they don't know, something that clashes with something they already knew. So the stimuli has done its job. And at that moment, questions should start to form in the head, because you see, thinking is just a process of asking and answering questions in your head. So we'd expect that moment 2 to happen, a question to form. Moment 3 is when that student goes into negotiation. They have to put their hand up to negotiate the right to even put a question out there. So we have moments lost. So we've got all sorts of things happening in our classrooms which are actually pushing our children to being answerers, not askers. Teacher reaction, body language is another one. You see, I think we walk into our classrooms with so many things we've got planned, things structured to do, things to cover. Somebody asks a question. This is going to take time. I'm not going to get things done. And the body language that teachers give out is huge. Here we are trying to create, according to our national vision, connected, lifelong, engaged learners. And we've got systems and structures and environments which are actually fighting against that the whole time. Okay, so what does this mean in reality in a classroom? Look, if we want our children, our students, to be question askers, we've got to change the environment. So the first thing is we've got to change the messages we give children. See, I believe they start out as a 3-year-old as a clever, intelligent, effective learner. They've learned how to crawl, how to walk, how to talk, how to do all sorts of things, how to play mum and dad off against each other. They're full of questions. So full of questions, they're asking them flat tack at home all the time. How long does it take before a child starts to respond, or actually receive, negative signals from the significant others in their life? Probably not very long. How many negative signals does it take to stop you asking questions? So in our classrooms, we've got to rebuild this confidence in being a question asker that these children already had as 3-year-olds. So we've got to make sure we take away the negative signals. So one thing is, any time a child asks a question, celebrate that they've asked a question. Wow. Recognize though that the question, because it's come from a state of confusion, a state of cognitive dissonance, may be a confused question. Rather than try and answer it straight away, help the child to clarify what the question is that they're asking. Once you've got that, even if it's a question that's irrelevant, still celebrate that you've got a question. Have a wondering wall up where you can put these questions up. Don't send another negative signal though by never doing anything with what's on the wondering wall. Not only that, have a framework which you can give students which allows them to self-evaluate the quality of their questions. And one of the frameworks I'd recommend you look at is the Questioning Waka, which is on the Questioning Skills Wiki. It's an easy concept. There's 5 paddles in the Waka, which are 5 different stages or types of questioning. And if you're an effective questioner, obviously all 5 paddles will be being used at the appropriate time and place. The Waka also has 2 anchor stones which hang down, which would anchor the Waka. And those are statements and irrelevant questions is anchor stone 1, and the anchor stone 2 is questions that are missing the vocab. These are questions that when you ask the question, somebody else has got to ask more questions so they can work out what your question really was. Give the kids a framework like that. Get them familiar with it so that they can start to self-evaluate and self-reflect on the quality of their questions. They can edit their questions, bring them back to being powerful, effective questions that will get them their answers.